So, funny story about that. Hi, hello, my name is Miranda. I'm your friendly neighborhood amateur Batman historian, and I am back to ranting rhapsodically about Robins. Let's talk about Damian Wayne. All right, so Damian debuts in 2006. He is created by the writer Grant Morrison. However, sort of the idea of Damian Wayne, right? The idea of the son of Batman and Talia al Ghul is much older than that. Way back in 1987, Mike Barr writes Batman, Son of the Demon. And that book is weird in terms of when it was written, it was meant to be part of the canon. However, due to its contents, it was later pushed off into an Elseworld, right? And in that, the story ends with baby Al Ghul Wayne being dropped off for adoption. In that story, Bruce and Talia's relationship is completely consensual. They are madly in love. This is important to remember. After Batman, Son of the Demon, this idea gets blacklisted. Nobody is allowed to mention the baby in main continuity ever again, right? The idea does come up a few times in the 90s. However, these are in Elseworld books. Mike Barr is very bitter about this fact. In 2004, Greg Rucka writes Death and the Maidens, and that is relevant to this essay because that really marks the moment that Talia goes from morally ambiguous, a neutral character, to straight up evil. After this book gets written, for the next 10 to 15 years, anytime Talia is written, she is written as evil. There's many reasons for this. Most of them seem to tie back to misogyny and racism. That's a different essay. Then in the early to mid 2000s, Grant Morrison is being courted to write for DC. They get multiple things out of the deal. One of the things that they get to do is they get to write for Batman. Morrison is a longtime Batman fan, and I would say one of the hallmarks of their style is they like callbacks. They like older references. They like to tie themselves into the continuity of the greater history of these characters. Their opening storyline for Batman is Batman and Son, wherein Damian is introduced. In a later interview that they do for Wizard magazine, they explicitly state that they were referencing Batman and Son, written by Mike W. Barr. However, Damian's conception, as presented in Batman 656, is not consensual. Batman states, and I quote, "I remember being drugged senseless and refusing to cooperate in some depraved eugenics experiment." And that is the version of events that Morrison lays out in Damian's introductory storyline, right? Damian is a product of non-consent. And I am rapidly running out of time, so there's going to be a part 2. So this is a part 2, by the way. Hi, my name is Miranda. I'm your friendly neighborhood amateur Batman historian. I am back to ranting rhapsodically about Robins. We're talking about Damian, specifically the conception. It's a scandal. Let's go. So, where we last left off, Grant Morrison introduces Damian Wayne in a storyline called Batman and Son in 2006. Damian isn't necessarily a product of consent, according to Morrison, which is directly contrary to Batman, Son of the Demon, a story from 1987, which Morrison was directly referencing. In a 2006 interview for Wizard magazine, Morrison admits that the discrepancies between Batman and Son and Batman, Son of the Demon are due to their own fuzzy memories. They didn't reread the story when they were writing theirs, which happens to the best of us, right? However, they also doubled down upon this new version of events, talking about how the Punch by Superboy Prime basically created a brand new DC continuity. Morrison later seemingly tries to retcon their version of the story with Batman 666, which features a panel showing Damian's origin that is much more in line with Batman, Son of the Demon. However, it is worth noting that that particular issue is through Damian's own perspective, and he's not exactly a primary source. However, that could just be me being nitpicky. However, Morrison then later walks this back. In a 2022 post for Xanadu, which as far as I can tell appears to be Twitter if it were locked behind a paywall. I did not pay for this, by the way. I got this from a secondary source. We're all just gonna have to deal with it. I quote, "For those who have wondered over the years, the conception of Damian was, in my mind, an entirely consensual event. The running joke is that he denies it." Pause quote. Morrison then goes on to describe something that is not consent. Continuing the quote. "I will admit, however, that Talia, in those stories, dosed the Caped Crusader with something resembling some combination of MDMA and Viagra. She can't help being the devil's daughter, after all." End quote. I assume this is followed by some form of chuckle. As a final note, I think it is worth pointing out that other writers don't necessarily like to talk about the drugging and the non-consent. Peter J. Tomasi specifically was given the opportunity to rewrite Damian's origin story for the New 52, and he chooses not to include it. As far as I'm aware, in the current Rebirth continuity, Damian is back to being a product of love between consenting adults. The only person really propping up this version of the story appears to be Grant Morrison. And that's really where the saga ends, you know? You've got Grant Morrison, who doesn't appear to have a freshman's understanding of consent. You have a slightly nebulous origin story. And you've got Damian, who is out there just living his best life, attacking people with dinosaurs. Love that for him. Have a great day.